Bashar al-Assad's flight from Damascus marks the end of 5 decades of his rule and his father's rule in Syria. For President Vladimir Putin, this event marks a catastrophic loss of interest, a loss of strategic assets, access to the Mediterranean, and a shattering of his global prestige. Putin's silence about this underscores Russia's inability to salvage its position, a stunning reversal of fortunes from the Kremlin's triumphant 2015 intervention. And what what has he lost? First of all, he's lost his military assets, his bases at Tartus and uh, this was a keystone for Russian power projection in the Mediterranean. Tartus was Russia's only naval base in the region, granting access to warm water ports. And Putin's also lost his political capital because he's demonstrated now that his capacity to protect allies and project himself as a decisive player in the Middle East has failed. Its success there, while it lasted, strengthened ties with key Gulf states like Israel and Turkey. Its failure now leaves those relationships in doubt. And contracts for Russian businesses in Syrian energy, reconstruction projects, although limited, were lucrative for Kremlin-linked oligarchs. There are strategic and reputational losses as well. The permanent loss of these bases cripples Russia's Mediterranean naval operations, and the ongoing Ukrainian conflict leaves Moscow unable to commit sufficient resources to counter the rebel advance. The prestige which is lost with the Gulf monarchies which previously courted Moscow and will now perceive it as impotent, as emasculated, as well as the power of the HTS-led rebellion, which is now rebranded, challenging the narrative that Assad was a bulwark against extremism. And Israel, this sort of ripple effect, emboldened by Moscow's retreat, will likely intensify its strikes on Iranian proxies, further diminishing Russia's leverage. Iran and Hezbollah, vital to Assad's survival, are unable or unwilling to step into the breach to help. And Moscow's failure to expose, Moscow's failure to deal with this exposes Putin as an unreliable ally, particularly when contrasted with renewed US involvement in the region. And Saudi Arabia and the Gulf neighbors may now well pivot back to the US, especially with Trump's expected return to office. And the collapse in Syria coincides with intensifying domestic challenges for Putin, including the war in Ukraine, the economic instability, and the fact that you can't buy butter. Russia's public fatigue over foreign interventions is likely to deepen as resources and lives are expended with little return. The broader global implications of this, the loss of resupply routes and bases in the Mediterranean, weakens Russia's logistical and military position, and as Putin's leverage erodes, Ukraine and its allies may seize the opportunity to press their advantage. Beijing, this partner that is critical of Moscow, is likely to be watching these developments with growing concern about Russia's declining competence on the world stage. Assad's fall marks the collapse of one of Putin's signature foreign policy achievements, and the cascading failures in Syria and Ukraine expose the limits of Russian ambition and the resources available to the Kremlin. As the Kremlin scrambles to salvage that influence, its once almighty image in the Middle East has been reduced to that of a power in retreat. And this moment underscores a critical turning point, not only for Syria, but for Russia's place on the global stage. For Putin, the fall of Damascus may be the harbinger of more collapses to come, not just abroad, but at home as well. This is a house of cards which we are watching tumble moment by moment, day by day, almost hour by hour.